honestly is a good match for a kitty no matter where you are, but
Yes.
certainly it allows me to help people that are distant to me, that aren't just in my local area. And there's so much efficacy that we can get out of a telehealth conversation that doesn't require the kitty to have to travel in and, go through the stressors of all of that.
Yes.
And so we're going to talk a bunch about, some of those things tonight. So it'll get, people a really good idea of some of the things that we can do. And if they want more information or something more customized where I can review labs and really get specific for their kitty, then they can reach out for a consult.
Absolutely. And I find it, you probably find this too. I think cats are often like treated as the stepchild in veterinary care. Not so much in all practices, but don't you think that there's so much more focus on dogs, dog health, dog gut health, dog behavior, dog diseases. And cats are just kind of like a second-class citizen, and they just don't get a lot of attention in terms of real specific problems. It's just, I don't know. And there's not a lot of vets out there that really focus on kitties. There are some.
Yep.
And
I definitely have a love for kitties. I'm a kitty person. And I am also very conscientious when I'm doing a consultation or an exam for a kitty that certain things that might be appropriate for dogs aren't obviously always appropriate for cats. The other thing that I really find is that oftentimes with cats, less is more. So in that, I mean that it's pretty easy for most dogs to have a few handfuls of supplements. Like, you can really be more cavalier with numbers of things. With cats, I'm very conscious of really helping to guide people with a minimal number of things that are going to get them the most bang for the buck. Like where my cat is right now, what are the things that we can be in sort of a minimalistic plan that are going to get them the most benefit. So I agree. And I think what you said too, with kitties sometimes sort of taking a back seat to doggies in veterinary medicine, is I think a couple of things. I think because of the stress of taking a kitty in, et cetera, I think more dogs kind of come into a practice, especially a holistic practice where there's acupuncture and, chiropractic, like not as many people might bring a kitty. But I think secondly, kitties tend to be better at hiding their symptoms.
Yes.
And I think sometimes wonderful, great pet parents, in-tune pet parents may not see cues as early as doggy parents are, or that you're seeing with dogs. So I think there's a few reasons for that, but it's wonderful that everybody's that's, in our audience here that's plugging in, obviously are very in tune with not only observing their kitties, but wanting to learn more about what we can do to help them. So thank you, everyone.
Yes, absolutely. And if you guys are watching tonight, drop a comment over here. If we have some time, we can answer those as we kind of go through our talk tonight. We are going to be discussing, what's throwing your cat's gut out of balance, or gut health problems. And the immune system is tied to the gut. They share the same real estate. So, if you have one, you have the other, whether you know it or not. And what else was I going to say? Okay, I dropped a discount code here. It's PURRR, and that is for Dr. Katie's website. She is going to do a special discount code for anything you guys want to order through her site this week. You'll have free shipping if you use that code. So I wanted to just say that before I forget. So let's dive in. Let's talk about this. Like, why do cats get gut health problems to begin with?
Right. And such a big why. And we'll speak to that on a few different angles, but I will also back up and say that you said so well that when you have gut issues, you have immune issues. They go hand in hand. So we can speak to that as well. Why are gut issues occurring? There's layers to the onion. So there's often not one simple, or one specific answer that we can point to, or cause that we can point to. It's usually, a collection of some things that are building up to a symptomatic pattern. But, there's many things, and I'll go through, some of the biggies. And definitely diet, and not sure where everybody, in this audience is with, sort of their feeding regimens for their kitties, but certainly as an overall scope.
Yeah.
Processed food, heavily processed food, which is the standard pet food, whether dog food, and very specifically dry food, like just dry food alone for cats without moisture with food. Those two things alone can definitely lead to gut issues.
Yes.
So anything that's heavily processed, we know, is more inflammatory. The heating methods, the extreme heat and extreme pressure cause inflammatory mediators to be created in that food. It also, of course, reduces the nutrient content that the kitty's able to use from the food. So we know that leads to issues, and it definitely leads to inflammation. It leads to inflammation in the gut. Also, as everybody knows, processed foods are going to have more toxins and preservatives and other things that cause challenges in the gut. And I will also call out glyphosate, which most people may be aware of what Roundup is, that is sprayed on a lot of crops. And I will say that even grain-free foods, some of the most heavily sprayed crops with glyphosate or Roundup are the kinds of things that would show up as carb content in grain-free pet foods or grain-free cat foods. And by that, I mean things like peas and lentils, etc. Peas and beans, potatoes, and that kind of thing, and lentils, high levels of glyphosate, even more than corn and soy.
Yes.
And glyphosate or Roundup is a huge destruction. It's causing a lot of destruction of the gut barrier wall. Yes. And that is where we can maybe segue from that into discussing leaky gut and bringing back into what you said, is that the immune system and gut health, or GI, the GI tract health, is very tied in together. And the reason for that is, of course, most people know our gut houses a big percentage of our body's microbiome. And our microbiome, the ecosystem of bacteria and other organisms in our body, in our kitties' bodies, are obviously very largely influencing and in control of our immune system, amongst other things, brain function and mood and all kinds of stuff. But the other thing is that the microbiome also needs a terrain, and the microbiome is part of our immune system. But lo and behold, 80% of the immune system tract that actually creates antibodies for the body is right below that gut barrier. And the inside of the intestines, the inside of the big tube of intestines, is lined by all the intestinal cells, the enterocytes, and they're supposed to have tight cellular junctions. And it's an intelligent barrier that is permeable enough, semi-permeable, to allow in our food to absorb into our body, so we can use it for fuel. But it's supposed to be, a barrier that's keeping out anything that is unwanted into the body, toxins and, other components and things. And so once we have inflammation in the gut, and those tight cellular junctions are challenged by that inflammation, and things start to open up from that inflammation, and now you have a leaky gut situation. And lo and behold, about 80% of the immune system is in a long lymph tract of what we call lymphatic tissue, right behind that gut barrier. And that tract of tissue is responsible for making 80% of the antibodies that our bodies make. And so when you have stuff leaking through, the first thing it interfaces with is this immune system tissue. And now the immune system goes into a tizzy and hyperdrive, is like, oh, all this stuff's coming through, I got to deal with this. Oh my God, there's toxins, there's glyphosate, there's bacteria, there's all this stuff, and food particles. So whatever the kitty is eating, then all of a sudden the body's creating antibodies to this, to everything coming through. And so that's how food allergy or food sensitivity can also come into play, is that once we have inflammation in the gut, the immune system gets involved, as you said, and the immune system can go into hyperdrive, and then we can become sensitive to foods and many other things, or just in a constant immune arousal state, which eventually could lead to autoimmune or immune mediated issues. And we can talk very specifically about IBD, because that's such a common thing for cats and dogs and humans, hate to say. But, we can define that a little better. But it was nice to sort of intro with that whole discussion on the immune system, and then how that comes into play for kitties with GI issues.
Yes. And can you talk just briefly about, you said something really important. You said when the immune system is on hyperdrive, it's called immune confusion. I've heard some vets call it immune confusion, because it's just going haywire and there's no off switch. So what I learned is that the immune system starts releasing just tons of histamine, tons and tons of tons. So you get a lot of histamine reactions and constant histamine. So can you describe what that looks like for some people whose cats may be having gut and immune issues so that they connect the dots a little bit?
A lot of times a histamine reaction is going to present or manifest as skin, problem, skin allergy, redness in the skin, perhaps, skin pustules, dermatitis, scabbing,
Mhm.
hot spots, that sort of thing. And interestingly, even in conventional, veterinary medicine and veterinary dermatologists, oftentimes will suspect when kitties come in with rashes on their face, especially around the ears, in
Mhm.
that tract of skin between sort of the out,
The
the left
eyes.
eye and the
Yeah.
ear. Yeah, when it's all angry in there and they're just,
Mhm.
it's so miserable. I mean, some kitties can just get to, really miserable with the level of itching where, it's really constant and very uncomfortable. And that could be other things. But one of the first suspicions when veterinarians see that is food allergy. And so
Mhm.
that part of that histamine, cascade as well. But again, the immune system is just so triggered that a lot of stuff is happening. And we can get into products at some point, but I just thought to share this right now that there are supplements and other things that are immune modulators that help to support the immune system to function optimally instead of in this confusion state. And so one thing
Mhm.
I love to clear up for people, because I have a lot of people say stuff like, well, I don't know if I should put them on a medicinal mushroom supplement like cordyceps and reishi and shiitake,
Mhm. Mhm.
because they're immune boosters or immune stimulants. And I don't want to stimulate the immune system because it's already overstimulated if they have IBD or something immune mediated. And I love to help explain to people that these types of supplements are actually immune modulators, not
Yeah.
stimulants or boosters, to where they're helping the immune system to adapt and respond appropriately rather than being in this confusion, overwhelmed state. So
Mm.
it's just a
Love
nice
that.
little tag in there.
Love that. It's so important that people know the difference because there's a difference, you know,
Yes.
most definitely. What are some other symptoms of gut health imbalance that you see a lot? I know you mentioned IBD. We talked about food sensitivity and allergies and things like that. What other things do you see in practice?
I will start out by saying what I would love to comment on is, of course, I mentioned IBD is super common. Um,
Mhm.
just to back up a little bit and
Yeah.
explain to everybody that IBD, of course, is an acronym for inflammatory bowel disease. Sometimes on the human side, it's called IBS for inflammatory bowel syndrome. And one of the things that I love to explain to people is that is a pretty vague
Yeah.
term in that it is used as a diagnosis and it's thrown around pretty cavalier, like you have IBD, your cat has IBD because the symptoms fit. And, but truly inflammation in the bowel or in the GI tract is really common. And IBD doesn't tell you what caused it. It just
Right.
tells you there's inflammation.
Mm.
And so it's not, just so people understand that it's not really giving us the cause. It's just a label that
Mhm.
tells us that there's inflammation. And again, we can get into what we can do about it. The other thing that I love people to know, though, because this is a big distinction from conventional medicine, theory, in that human doctors and veterinarians on the conventional side think that IBD is lifelong and that you will never be able to get rid of it. It's not curable or resolvable, that it is immune mediated, which
Yeah.
means you're going to just have to manage it for the rest of your kitty's life or your life if you're a human that has it, whatever. And I love to share with people that that is absolutely not true, in
Mhm.
that IBD is resolvable. And I get to see it more often than not, actually. So it's very exciting. And there are, so many steps that we can take. But just so people understand that it is absolutely, something that can be corrected. And once people understand that, of course, the body is in an innate, brilliant, dynamic structure that is constantly changing. In fact, a lot of
Mhm.
experts say in 7 years, the human body has all new cells. Like you're not even the same cellular makeup that you were years ago because you're literally just changing everything over. When
Mhm.
it comes to the gut, the cells that, hi sweetie, the cells that line the lining of the gut and the gut barrier, those cells actually regenerate and renew every 5 to 7 days. So I love to tell people, like, literally, you're creating a new lining, gut lining, like every week. There's no reason that you or your kitty have to live with IBD for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And if we're not changing anything, then it's just going to keep recreating the same scenario. That's why conventional medicine is used to IBD being lifelong, because most of the things from conventional medicine are managing symptoms and they're not really taking care of the underlying cause, which means the body's always in the same pattern. So every time it regenerates, it's back to the same old pattern. And so, but I just love to fuel everyone with that optimism that this is absolutely resolvable and doesn't have to remain just manageable. So that. And then I can head into, unless you want to interject, you asked about some of the other, symptoms and things that we see with gut health problems. You already mentioned skin. So definitely when I see any chronic skin problems, I'm already thinking what's going on in the gut.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And so that's a big one. Other things, that I would say just to be on the lookout for that are, symptomatic, is there are numerous things that can present when there's gut issues. And that obviously can look like poor stool quality. It can look like vomiting or regurgitation issues. It could look like poor appetite or very finicky appetite. Any of those things could be an indicator that obviously there's stuff going on with gut issues.
Yeah. What about respiratory issues, like chronic allergies?
Yeah. I mean, again, and respiratory issues for cats typically, of course, are this latent viral, for kitties, it's a herpes virus that, once they get it at whatever stage, kittenhood, or when they were in a shelter or wherever, they came from, or there was stress going on, that the herpes virus, notoriously, these types of viruses lay latent. And then when you're stressed or anything's going on, things can surface again. And as we know, anytime there is a gut health issue, the immune system, as we talked about, and the microbiome are also being challenged, which means that even though it's a viral issue, that it's tied in, because if we have optimal gut health, the likelihood that a viral thing is going to take over again like that is much reduced.
Yes.
And stress comes into play, and obviously that comes into play for all of us all of the time, especially in today's global status that we're in. There's just a lot of stress permeating, and so it's always good to be mindful of the stress component for our kitties and ourselves. And when we are helping ourselves with our stress level and breathing more deeply and being more mindful about that, energetically, biofield, all of that, our kitties get to feel that as well, and they get the benefit of that too. So there's all kinds of stuff that we can go down a whole awesome rabbit hole of stress, but
that's awesome.
know that it has a lot to do with respiratory, but it also has a lot to do with gut health too.
Yes, I agree. That's cool. Okay, so we've covered like tons of different types of symptoms when it comes to gut health issues. The next question I think on the list was, when we talked about the causes and what contributes to those, what are your favorite tests and supplements and foods and stuff for cats with these types of issues?
Awesome. Love that question. So I have a few like show and tell stuff, because I think it's easier for people to absorb and understand things when you can see a visual rather than me just talking about it. And so I have a couple of things to show. And let's see. Yeah, this one is right here. So let me start off with just microbiome. You've probably talked about this on, previous episodes, but I am a big fan of microbiome testing. There are a few different companies out there that do this, but one of the most common ones, and the one that I, see most frequently, is the animal biome. By the way, it's an old pamphlet, but I love the tagline in the green: "Takes guts to be healthy." Best tagline ever. And every holistic and, integrative practitioner, obviously we're talking about gut health being the cornerstone of immune and everything else. So a microbiome test is a stool test where people can just send it out themselves. We do this kit, on our online shop in our store at my website, so they can get it from us, but or directly from Animal Biome. And it's just a stool sample test that they send in, and then you get a very complete report back on, if there's a dysbiosis, which often there is, and that's an imbalance of the microbiome. And then importantly, getting guidelines as to what we can do about that.
Right.
There are certain probiotics and prebiotics that can be used. And then of course, fecal transfer capsules or other routes to do fecal transfer to help the microbiome to rebalance and improve. And so that's just one way. And really good part of a scenario. The other few tests that I will just bring up. Food sensitivity testing can have its place as well.
Yeah.
And so we may have talked about this too in the past, and this is just one of many tests, but I like this test, NutriScan. It's available for kitties and dogs. And it is a saliva test where the pet parent sends in a saliva sample, and the test is measuring for antibody reactivity. So IgA and IgM antibodies paired up to lots of different foods that are the common foods that would be in a pet food. And it shows us if that kitty is reactive to those typical foods or those types of foods, and which ones. And the value of that test is that if there are foods that are causing more fuel to the fire, like adding more inflammation, they're triggers for any more inflammation, then that the results could be used to help decipher, are there food changes I can do for my kitty that would help out this situation? It's not the only thing we want to do, but it is a nice tool or factor that we can use to adjust food. The other thing I'd like to say about food sensitivity tests is that it is a snapshot in time. So I love people to know that if their pet comes back with whatever shows reactive, that's red and high reactivity and all this kind of stuff, doesn't mean that they are going to be reactive to those foods for the rest of their lives. But it means right now their gut has got a lot of inflammation and a lot of immune reactivity going on, that these are the most reactive things right now. So if we omit those or pull back on those, then we just assist the body to simmer down, help that inflammation to come down better. Do some other strategies too. But I love to tell people you can rerun that test in 6 to 12 months because things can totally change.
Absolutely.
And if we're successful in working, on the actual cause, then we expect it to change. And I get to see the change all the time where, subsequent tests come back much better or totally fine, so that is a fun thing to know about. Two more things that I will mention. You may have covered this before or something similar, but the veterinary, veterinary diagnostics. And if you can see, from my camera, it's mirrored, essential vitamins test. And the essential vitamins test from VDI, Veterinary Diagnostics Institute, is testing for some nutrients that are often deficient, especially if there's GI issues. So those nutrients include vitamin B12 or cobalamin, vitamin D, and also folate, which is another B vitamin, which could be high or low depending on, because with SIBO, with small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or just sometimes it's high. And then it also tests for magnesium, which is an important trace mineral that is often low.
Oh, interesting.
And so that is a great test. And usually kitties with IBD will have low B12 and low vitamin D. And then folate could be up or down. And so I love that test because if they're low in B12, if we start supplement with B12, they feel so much better and all of their body cells can create more energy. So it's a really wonderful thing to supplement if needed. And same thing with vitamin D. If vitamin D is low, the body is more likely to hang on to inflammation. Not only are we more susceptible to infection with low levels, but we are more susceptible to inflammation, and it's hard for the body to resolve inflammatory patterns if our D is not, optimal. So I love testing for those because they're easily correctable if low, and 80% of the time they're low, by the way.
Can I ask you one more question about VDI?
Yeah.
Do you recommend doing that hair tissue for like toxic metal toxin test as well with them?
It is a nice test to do. Now, if people feel overwhelmed with just stuff to do and cost, because be realistic, everybody's on a budget here, is that I would say that's less of a priority.
Okay.
All power to you though, if you can do it. Like, awesome. More information, I think the better. But if you had to sit and, make priorities, that would be farther down the list. But I'm glad you asked, because it's a very worthy thing to know about and to consider, especially in, certain situations.
Well, and think like this. Like I tell people all the time, if you know that your cat has had multiple vaccines and has been exposed to tons of flea and tick topical applications for ongoing well, you can pretty much be sure that they're going to have a lot of toxins and a lot of metals and a lot of all that other stuff. So yeah, that probably would just back up your common sense. Well, yeah, you're going to find all that, right? So
Right.
spend your money on the other, more like you saw, the nutrients and things like that.
Yep. And then, and if we do suspect those toxins, which, hate to say that's pretty common too.
Yeah.
And by the way, and I don't know if you said fish in your list of stuff, but people that feed a lot of, fish in the diet, especially if they're large fish like tuna and salmon, the smaller feeder fish, by the way, like sardine and anchovy, way less contaminated overall with the heavy metal situation. And so less mercury and things like that. But as you called out, obviously vaccines, aluminum, and mercury and all stuff. So so those tests could be done, and there are detox things that can be heavy metal binders. There's all kinds of stuff that we could talk about in that category too. So there are things we can do, and I'm glad you mentioned the hair test, because I think it's very good for people to be aware of that option as well.
Yeah.
And then the last test that I wanted to show for, and I just didn't have a box here in my office, but a test that is really good for GI issues is, are you familiar with the Innovative Pet Lab? I don't know if this will show up so well.
Yeah, I do. I affiliate with them too.
Good. Have you had Innovative Pet Lab, the IPL? Have you had them on your show? Okay, fantastic. So I don't know if
no, not on my show, but we're going to record a show next month. So
perfect. So it might be me, Jamie Smith, or one of the other team over there. That they're all fantastic, or Dr. Betsy. And they can explain this. So, everybody stay tuned, because you're going to get some great information about this from an upcoming presentation. But I will just say that this is an easy test to do, because again, it's a stool test. And it's called the Comprehensive Gut Check. And they have one for dogs and they have one for cats.
Yeah.
And they are measuring several different markers that help us to decipher, is there an inflammation going on in the gut? Is there specifically leaky gut? Are there markers that show that there's an issue with, food allergy or food sensitivity? They're measuring for IgA, they're measuring zonulin or gut, which shows that there's tight cellular junction disruption, and they're measuring calprotectin for levels of inflammation that can tell us if we're looking like there's an IBD, etc. So this is an easy, non-invasive test. Like, I have a lot of people say, should I do an ultrasound? Ultrasounds, usually you're seeing the thickening of the intestines. And I'm like, hey, before you even do, and by all means, an ultrasound is not a bad thing to do. I mean, it's worthy information, but this test actually, I think, gives more information in a super non-invasive way. Yeah. So it's a really, but obviously you can do both if the kitty really had some significant things going on. But yeah, I'm glad you guys are going to hear more about that. So that's a wonderful test to be aware of and to plug into.
Absolutely. Those are all very, very good tests. So, because I think so many times people forget, or, no, let me back up. Their regular vets don't pull from those. They're like, they'll do a blood panel, they'll do a urinalysis, and it'll all come back looking great, right?
Yes.
There's something wrong. And they'll say, well, we could do an ultrasound.
Right.
And maybe it's so dang expensive.
Exactly. I'm so glad you brought that up, because the standard test, although they should be done, because a CBC and chemistry and a urinalysis and a thyroid level, a T4 essentially, is a really important baseline to just have. Honestly, I would do it every year just for a wellness baseline of, finding stuff early and checking in on things. But definitely, if anybody's showing an illness pattern, you definitely want that baseline. But like you said, Pam, that is not going to tell us what is going on in the gut. But we still want to know that information, because it's important to factor everything in. But I love that you said these tests are off the radar of conventional veterinary medicine.
They are.
So everything I talked about is not something that they would be doing. They would do a fecal, which is a parasite, looking for GRD, stuff like that. Or now there's fancier tests out that are fecal PCR, they call them. And so they're looking for, different overgrowth of bacteria, but that is different than the animal biome test.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, these are different tests. And I did forget to mention that we do have the IPL test on our website too. So a lot of in fact, we carry the VDI. I mean, everything I mentioned, we have on our website.
Well, and here's what's so cool about it, guys. You don't have to take your cat to the vet to get these tests done. They send these kits to your home, and you provide either the saliva or the hair tissue, or the poop samples, and you send it in a kit. And then 7 days, 2 weeks later, they send you the email with all the results, and you log in and you can look at everything. And then you can take those results and share them with your vet and say, okay, this is what these diagnostics are showing me.
Exactly. And a primary vet or a conventional vet may, and if they're open and, supportive, they'll at least take a look and try to help, troubleshoot. If they're not as open and not as supportive, you may not get a whole lot of help from your primary vet. But the good news is, I mean, you could have a consult with me, which I would love. But secondly, animal biome, with your purchase of the test kit, even when you buy it from us, you get a complimentary, or it's included in the price of the test. You get a 15-minute phone consultation with the experts at Animal Biome. And not only do they talk you through the test results and what to do about it, they send you a nice little outline on email with the steps. These are the things that we do. And then recheck it in 3 months and see, where the biome is, et cetera. And then the team at IPL is super. I mean, they'll be able to tell you, what they offer directly for, straight to, pet parents. But certainly that would be something that they could, align with somebody like me or another holistic practitioner that can really help to support whatever the test results say that need to be, offered for that kitty. So
yes, that's awesome. Because we don't like to take our cats to the vet because they don't like car rides. They don't like getting in the kennel. It's a traumatic experience. They're afraid of barking dogs in the lobby. It's weird sounds, weird smells. So this is just great that you guys don't need to do all that.
Exactly. Yep.
You can do it all from home. It's great.
And the only one that wouldn't be done from home would be the EI, because this is a blood test.
Yes.
Now, the options for that in my area, in San Diego, we have some mobile veterinary technician services, which is super awesome. And so we give people that information, like, hey, the technician we, kind of work with, Christina, she can head out to your house and draw the blood sample and submit it for you. So if those kinds of options are available, by all means, I would plug into that. A lot of people, though, just take the test kit to their primary vet and say, will you please do a blood draw? And then those tests that blood test goes out in the mail as well. And so then the pet parent gets the report back. And, really it's very user-friendly and tells you what your pet is low in and what you need to do. And we carry those products too, like vitamin D and B12, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. So we're trying to make it simple for you guys.
Yeah.
Feel overwhelmed.
I love that you said that. I mean, kitties, stress is such a realistic piece of the equation for cats. And anything we can do to support their health and, their improvement without the stress of a visit, hey, we're all for that. Sometimes a visit is necessary. Obviously we get that, but there are things that we can do that are super valuable that don't necessarily require a visit.
Yes. And you know what? At the end of the day, you can test and stop guessing.
I love that. You said that so well. Is that a lot of holistic veterinarians? You said that. I'm so glad you said that. Like, truly, because there's so, people will, send me messages, or like, my cat's doing this. What do you think? And I'm like, well, there's so many things that can cause that. Like, I don't know, without asking more questions or getting some tests.
Yeah.
I can't speak to that very well because I don't really have any information to go on. So testing. I mean, it's such a good value. Like, it's worth the investment and the money of these types of tests, because then you can really customize your approach and get some information that tells us causes or leads us to answers that are going to be a good solution. So
absolutely. Yeah. And then people can stop feeling overwhelmed and not know where to start. This will give you a place to start so that you can know what to do next. It's just, Yeah, it can
Absolutely.
be very frustrating. But yeah, let's go on. I don't want to run
Yeah,
out.
no worries. Yeah, we want to talk about like products and stuff, right? And
Yeah.
then you asked about foods too, which, maybe we should talk about products first, just so we make sure we get through those. And like I said, I carry a lot of these on my website if people do want them, but certainly we can have a consult and I can talk you through stuff more specifically. So let me start with one of my all-time favorite things, and you may have talked about this already on your show, Pam, but is your audience familiar with Animal Essentials?
Yes, I love Animal Essentials. It's in my shop too. Colon Rescue is awesome.
Yay! Okay. So see,
Yep.
you provide it. So perfect. I will
Yep.
literally tell you it's one of my all-time favorite for herbal formulas ever. And
Mhm.
it does come in a powder, which you may have
Yep.
both. It comes in the liquid and the powder, whichever's easier to get into your kitty. That's the one I would choose. You can try them both, if you want to see which one is more accepting by them. But colon rescue, I think it should be called GI rescue, because
Mhm.
the colon, of course, is the large intestine. So whenever there's anything going on in the large intestine, soft stool, diarrhea, mucousy stool, blood in the stool, etc., even constipation, colon rescue to the rescue. This stuff is awesome. But if there's small intestinal stuff, IBD, if there's upper GI stuff,
Mhm.
reflux, gastritis, yucky feeling tummy, stomach, this stuff is amazing too. It's like a one-stop shop for the gut as far
Yes.
as bringing down inflammation, soothing the lining in there, and supporting healing. And the ingredients, of course, are slippery elm, marshmallow root, licorice root, plantain. Love that stuff. So
Yes.
you know about that. Another thing that is really one of my go-tos, especially if there's upper GI stuff. For a lot of cats that have GI issues, vomiting and regurgitating are, sometimes with dogs, that's not, it's like, it's all lower GI. For cats, it could be that way, but a lot of times there's this, upper piece presenting as well. And I love homeopathy for that. And so I did create, and in my new product line, I have a homeopathic blend that we call our tummy blend. And it's for cats or dogs, and it has a blend of several different homeopathic remedies that are combined together. One of them is Nux vomica, a
Mhm.
very common one known, but other ingredients, hep heal, and some other things that help with either stomach cramping, stomach discomfort, nausea, indigestion, vomiting, that sort of thing. And one of the great things about homeopathy is that it's working on energetics. Everybody's an energetic being, but cats tend to just be so in tune with like energy. And homeopathy, I feel like it's kind of a less is more, because it's all homeopathic remedies are very, very dilute. And I feel like they're just such a great match for kitties.
They
Uh,
really are. Yeah, cats are little energy sponges.
right?
They
So
really
yeah, you're totally in agreement. And so I just feel like homeopathy especially is a nice thing for them, but truly for anybody. And then the other great thing about homeopathy is it absorbs from the mucous membranes. You can
Mhm.
put it in food if you need to,
Yep.
but if you can just gently squirt a little bit in the mouth, lift up a lip, lift down a lip, and just drizzle it in there, done. You don't have to open the mouth and try and get it to the back. The object is not to swallow it, but it could be
Right.
given food or something that they'll lick off. And then it's not even getting to the stomach. It's really just doing its job without even ever having to be obviously.
Mhm.
So I love that. And that tummy homeopathy or anything similar could be used short-term, acute issues, longer-term issues. Same with colon rescue, super safe long-term. Um, and then a few others that I will call out. I love, and you can get this from our website as well. And I don't know if you carry this, Pam, but the Standard Process brand.
I don't yet, but
Okay.
hopefully in the future.
Okay. So let me just mention that Standard Process is a company that does nutritional supplements. So I like to call it food medicine in a bottle.
Mhm.
You read
Mhm.
the label, it's all food. It's either
It is.
organic plant material or it is
And
organs and glands. And
yes,
big glands, I'm talking beyond
glands.
the liver, kidney. We're talking spleen and adrenal gland and thymus and pituitary and all these wonderful things that are not in a diet unless it's a whole prey diet.
Correct.
So Standard Process has a supplement for cats. They have many, but they have one for GI stuff, and it's called Feline Enteric Support, because ENTERIC, enteric, means gut.
Oh, the
And
gut. Yep.
so feline enteric support, and I'll just show, I don't know if that shows up. That's what it looks
Yeah.
like in a bottle, and it's a food tablet, a little like air-dried desiccated food tablet. Those tablets can be given as a treat. They have enough organ meats in them that a lot of cats will eat it like a treat, or you crush it and put it in the food, or hide it as a whole tablet or whatever. I find that supplement to be oftentimes a game changer for IBD.
Right.
That when cats go on that, they do better. And when, they run out, oftentimes people are like, oh, they're not as good, I'm getting them back on that again. So the ingredients in there, these food-based ingredients, help new intestinal lining to regenerate and renew in a healthy pattern. So for food medicine, a couple more that I will call out. Ion.
Love Ion.
I love Ion. And Dr. Zach created it.
Yes.
So Ion, many of your audience may or group may be familiar, but ION is an acronym for Intelligence of Nature. And that is the company's name because these ingredients are soil derived. And so they are from nature. And the ingredients in there are exceptional at healing leaky gut, essentially. So it's helping bring the tight cellular junctions back together, strengthen the gut barrier, which therefore creates a better terrain for the microbiome. So all the marketing on it is, hey, it helps the gut health, it helps the microbiome, it helps the immune system, it helps the brain because the gut-brain axis. So it is one of the most foundational things we can do to support immune system and gut health all in one. So love that stuff. Also, as you can see, it's a liquid in the bottle that it's in, and it tastes pretty much like water. It has no flavor. And a full dose for a cat is a half a teaspoon twice a day. So pretty easy. And
easy.
Food can go right in the mouth, doesn't matter. And then two more things I'll call out. CBD or cannabinoids, I also find to be a game changer with IBD.
Oh, wow.
For a lot of cats. CBD or cannabinoids or hemp, if it's a quality product, of course, is anti-inflammatory and analgesic if there's discomfort, and immune modulator, and, for stress. And I mean, there's just so many benefits of this like multi-versatile plant medicine, option. But there have been studies to show, and there may be feline studies, but there's definitely canine studies that show that there are cannabinoid receptors, throughout the body. We know that, but there are in the intestines too. And canine studies have shown that CBD actually helps inflammatory bowel disease.
Wow.
So, and I've seen it clinically for cats, like cats get better. And so we don't have a CBD on our site. I don't know if you do on yours, but we do have a consultant who is not brand specific. I've known Robin Lynn for 10 years. She's a certified cannabis herbalist, and she does consultations, or she has a website that you can just go learn off of and then make your choice. But she does customized consultations to help people choose something that is quality, but very good for that, reason or that individual. And then she helps with dosing guidance too. So if you want to tap into her, she's also linked on our website.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have a couple brands that I like. Who are just super, super, leaders in that area. But I'm glad that there's more and more people that are really getting into that, because it's just exploded over the last 5-7 years,
It has, and it's overwhelming explosion.
Yeah.
And it's got its pros and its cons, in that it's a pro that, people are learning that this plant medicine has so much potential. But cons are the market's flooded. A lot of the products out there are not good quality. It's hard for the average pet parent or consumer to know the difference. And so it's really helpful to plug into a reliable resource to help point you in the right direction. So
absolutely. Yep. Totally.
So, awesome. And then one more thing that I'll mention, but it's not necessarily a supplement. I mean, it is, but not like a brand name, is that if kitties are on raw food diets, and this applies to dogs too, I find that more fiber is really important.
Yes.
And so now if they're eating a kibble, usually there's a lot of fiber, and more indigestible fibers and things like that in there. But fiber has an important role, not only for intestinal motility and stool quality, but in feeding the microbiome, because fibers are important prebiotics. And I do find that pets that are on excellent quality raw foods, definitely benefit from more fiber, and we'll see that in their microbiome reports too. So
I'm so glad you said that, because I don't think that, especially in some minds who do the whole prey model diet, they're so opposed to adding plant material of any kind. And it's like, we have to really look at what the microbiome needs.
yes,
it will crash If you do
Yeah,
not give it a food source, they will die. So
right.
we can't do that to our cats who are eating a prey model diet. You've got to add a fiber source in there.
Yeah,
They
because even with a prey model, depending on, what is in that prey. I mean, in the wild, obviously, they have so much variety,
right.
what they can catch that day, what they can get a hold of. And so, who knows what's in the intestines and what's in the, entrails that they're eating and the fiber they're getting. And then there's some skin and some hair and some, other fibrous things that they're consuming. And a prey model may have that, but in most modern day raw food diets for pets, like, it's stripped clean of all of that. So it's devoid of
Absolutely.
that. But
Yeah.
also evolutionarily and, in the wild, they're nibbling on some grass. They're
Mhm.
nibbling on some vegetation. And we know
Yep.
that cats are obligate carnivores and that they don't need a lot of it. And they shouldn't be out there eating potatoes and peas, and stuff like that. But some greens and some fibers,
Absolutely. Yep.
absolutely. Yep. Yep.
Do you
And
recommend rotating your fiber sources just to give more
I
variety?
do. I'm so glad you mentioned that. And actually, I realized I did have set aside two fibers. So one easy source of fiber that a lot of people use for kitties is, of course, psyllium husks.
Mhm.
And a general guideline for kitties would be a quarter teaspoon once or twice a day, generally twice a day. But once a day is still totally useful. Of psyllium, mixed in the food, and psyllium essentially has no flavor. So most cats don't mind that.
Right.
However, there's a couple other fun fiber sources. Are you familiar with the green juju
I love
company?
green juju.
Woo,
Green
woo.
juju.
That's right. We were together in the green juju booth. It's super.
Yeah, we were. We
In
were.
Vegas. Super too.
Yeah.
So the dried greens from green juju, phenomenal source of fiber and a ton of nutrient. So
Oh,
it's like they're nibbling on super nutritious vegetation in the wild, because we're talking organic kale, dandelion greens, parsley, nettles, celery, zucchini, and then there's ginger, turmeric. Everything's organic, so I won't read organic 10 times, and some coconut flour. Like,
okay.
so perfect. So
Yeah.
talk about a fiber and minerals and, trace nutrients and all that in one go. Like, amazing.
Love it.
A lot of cats actually like it. Like, you can sprinkle some out and or sprinkle it in the food, and a lot of cats actually really like it.
That's awesome.
And then another thing worth mentioning is the sprouted seeds, the Purrrfectly. This one, I mean, Carnivore brand, they do make, like a baked kibble for cats too, but they do make the sprouted seed for dogs and cats right on there.
Mhm.
And that's a nice source of fiber. Anything, and it's of course organic, anything that is sprouted has more nutrient value than, a normal
That's right.
plant seed. And so this is a nice fiber source as well, with a lot of nutrients in it. So just like the Just Greens, you get a win-win of fiber and nutrition. So
That is awesome. I hope you guys are taking a lot of notes.
so
Okay,
yeah.
I have a question, and
Yeah.
a lot of people probably are kind of running into this little issue. Can gut health issues be resolved naturally, or are there cases where medication must be used alongside something?
That is such a good question. I'm so glad you asked that. Because even though obviously I'm a holistic integrative practitioner, I really like to help my patients get off of prescription medications, and usually we're successful with that. And of course, I like to help guide people to minimize and avoid the overuse of medications, which is very common on the conventional side.
Yes.
I always want to keep an integrative perspective that we don't want to demonize Western medicine and medications always. There is a time and a place to use those,
Yeah.
and it can be very purposeful in a crisis situation. And crisis doesn't have to be acute, but it can. Like, obviously, anybody knows trauma, a traumatic injury is a crisis. Like, okay,
Absolutely.
let's plug into Western medicine because we're going to need it.
Yeah.
But crisis time can also be chronic low-grade disease that tips over into, uh-oh, my body's in trouble. And that could be like IBD, it could be diabetes, it could be, a whole lot of things that it's like, I might need some Western medicines right now to stabilize and
Mhm.
get back into, at least a stable enough place where we can now start to put in our natural tools and slowly head towards true healing We don't want to stay in the drugs because that's
Right.
not going to get us to healing. And drugs for too long and too many are going to start adding their problems on top of it, So that's not the overall answer, but it can be a temporary help. And
Okay.
so I give people sort of the permission and the free, for lack of a better word, the permission and the freedom to, when they call and they're like, I don't want to use drugs. And I'm like, it's okay to use things temporary. If it's wise, I love to guide people through that, but it's not wrong to use medications, especially when we're thinking of them as a temporary or tool to help us feel better, to help our kitties feel better until we can get to the true healing phase. And that takes a little bit of time. You got to plug into somebody like me or, resources like you, which is awesome, and start stepping in some things that are going to create a shift and a change. And that's not going to happen overnight. So sometimes you need to rely on your Western medicines to help you for that initial stage.
Yeah.
And then wean them out. Now, that said, if they're not critical and they meet me and they're like, hey, they've got digestive issues and, they were just diagnosed with this and I haven't started them on anything yet, I'm like, awesome. We don't need to necessarily turn to drugs. We can start with all the holistic stuff. So depending on what they are in their health journey, it may not be, necessary at all, but sometimes it is.
That's awesome. Barbara has a question. She said, would sprouted chia seed work for fiber supplementation?
Yes, it is. It will actually work for fiber. So that's one of the ingredients in, something like this, the sprouted seed thing. So
awesome.
Variety is nice, but by itself, amazing, So some other things in it is beautiful too.
Yep. And Terry says cats need grass. They crave grass. It's a must. It's true. I have some growing in my kitchen. Only one of the cats really nibbles on it, but he's always liked it. So I'm like,
yep,
it's yours, buddy. You don't even have to share.
There you go.
Oh my gosh. It's so funny. Let's go back to, I think we have a few more minutes before we wrap up. Is there anything particular about food that you wanted to add, or did we cover everything?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. I mean, essentially with food, they're, a little bit less sort of, for lack of a better description, options than there are for dogs. But the big thing with cats is that we definitely would like to have either all or a decent portion of their diet be moisture rich. Like we really want to avoid all their food being dry. That sets up a whole problem for not only gut health, but kidney and bladder and everything else, as I'm sure all of your listeners know. And so moisture rich food is important. That could look like raw. It could look like gently cooked. It could look like quality canned or, the liquid packs, that kind of stuff. So any of those versions, honestly, I love variety. I think, clearly variety is the spice of life, cliche, but it's true. Different types of foods, different formats of foods, different ingredients and different proteins are all really good. But my big thing is I really like to not see heavily processed food. And if all of their food can be moisture rich, or at least a good portion of it, they're going to be so much healthier. So that's my big thing.
Yes.
So people didn't know, gently cooked, historically, there's not many foods out there that are either available for cats or that they like. But the Evermore company that does gently cooked foods, they have 2 new feline formulas. And I saw them at the HVMA, American Holistic Veterinary Medical Association, last month. And they say they're really palatable. They've piloted them and tried them and all this kind of stuff. So I'm excited about them. They said there's clam juice in it, which is a really nice, flavor. And the thing about Evermore is that their ingredients are free range and organic, which
that's awesome. What is your
some new diets out? So
no, absolutely. And Beth says, if there was one supplement to add for cat gut health, what would that be? Can I make a little recommendation? What do you think about raw goat's milk, like green juju? Since it's fermented, it's a complete food. It offers so much nutrient. If your cat is not like having acute symptoms and you just want to support the gut, would that be a good option?
I would say it's for medicinal foods. Love raw dairy, whether it's kefir, whether it's raw goat milk, raw cow milk, in my experience, because goat milk has a strong flavor. Some cats won't drink goat milk, but they'll drink cow milk. as long as it's raw, we're okay. Or it could be cream and you just give less of it, but raw cream, raw kefir, raw milk, phenomenal for gut health. So is bone broth if your kitty is willing to drink bone broth. Beautiful, beautiful food for the gut, as well as many other things. And you just reminded me when Beth, I think it was Beth that asked that question, is I didn't mention that digestive enzymes are also a beautiful thing. And Jay and Adrian at Two Crazy Cat Ladies have their Catalyst, which might be in your store, right?
Yep.
That is a liquid digestive enzyme. Oh,
Phenomenal for cats.
Over the moon about that product too, because I will tell you, I didn't talk about this. Digestive enzymes, so Beth, this might be one of my top things, besides the medicinal foods. Digestive enzymes are amazing for gut health because they're helping the foods to break down to the tiny little, peptides and molecular components they're supposed to be for absorption. And if they're eat fast or they don't chew and you're not digesting well, and especially as anybody ages, humans, cats, dogs, our digestive enzyme capacity starts to decline. So putting digestive enzymes in the food helps us not only to break our foods and our kitties to break the foods down and get more out of their food, but it also helps to eliminate or reduce inflammation being caused in the gut from the not so good of breakdown foods. So there you go.
That's awesome. And guys, we are out of time. We're going to have to wrap up the show. So, oh my gosh, this has been so fun. I could talk to you for another hour.
Yeah, but I'm like, good health.
We could come back for like another topic or something. This has been great. Yeah. Why don't you tell people one more time where they can find you? And then you guys, she does have a special discount code. I'll let her tell you that one more time too.
Thank you. I'll tell you a couple of things. Thank you so much, Pam. So for anybody who's interested, you can go to my website for either products or to look at potential consultation or just some of my other resources. I actually will am planning in the works soon to have a monthly, like membership thing where there's more, content and things for everybody. But for now, I do have products, I do have my consultations, and I do have workshops. You'll see when you go to my website, which is intvetcare.com, intvetcare, which is short for my practice name, Integrative Veterinary Care. So intvetcare.com. And there's a shop tab where you can find all our test kits and products and stuff like that. And then also I do workshops usually monthly on different health topics, which are live and interactive with Q&A sessions. And I'm big on dental health as well as gut health. And I am doing a dental health workshop November 15th. So if people are interested, and that'll be for, cats and dogs, dental health. And if people are interested in that, you'll find that information on my website. And then if you order any products from us through this week, we have the discount code. You can enter in the discount code PURR, P-U-R-R-R, and then all your shipping will be free since you found out about us through this podcast.
Yay. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for popping in and share this video with somebody who that might have a cat struggling with issues. Not that, everything we talked about can certainly be applied to dogs too, but we wanted to really focus in on kitties. So thank you, Dr. Katie. You are awesome. And I hope you guys go check out her website, go look at her services. And if you need her support, she's awesome. She can partner with you and your vet to provide a different perspective, a holistic, integrative perspective, and maybe give you some guidance. So anyway, y'all have a great rest of your evening, and we'll be back next month with another show. So
thank you for using Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Awesome. Okay.